What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a very special addendum episode of the House of Hallowell. As you guys all know, we were doing chick flick watch
Oh,
party,
where
and
did he
part
go?
of the
Is he
bit
frozen
is
just
I
for
have
me, or is
to.
it
I
him?
watched it live for the first time. I couldn't cheat. I didn't jump ahead. And lo and behold, the guest star du jour, the star of the episode, happens to be a dear friend of mine who I've known for 15 years and has given me copious amounts of notes throughout my acting career. Chris. So, dude, we made a call, or I made a call, and thank God he was available and able to join us. So, Chris, thanks so much, man. Welcome.
Thank you guys for having me. Such a
Welcome
pleasure.
to the
I love working on the
addendum.
show.
The addendum.
The
mess
addendum,
up.
yeah. I know. I didn't see your message until later, and then I saw that. I just went on the podcast. I was like, oh, I think we missed it.
But addendums are allowed. We can do whatever we want.
Totally. There are no rules. Charmed had no rules. We can make up our own worlds, clearly.
Yeah. We're the boss of ourselves. That's what we're doing.
We're bossing ourselves.
Yeah, you can steal that.
Okay.
I will.
You can all steal.
Just me.
No, everyone can have that. So, hey man, let's just dive right in. Chick flick. Do you remember how long?
Like a huge fan favorite. Like, it's like creating wars amongst the folks where they're like, no. Because what did you say, Drew? You said Drew is from a place of not knowing, because apparently he hasn't seen all 8 seasons, but including his seasons.
Or one season.
He calls this one top 3.
I loved it. It was so fun. But also I have like a soft spot in my heart for movies like, well, I think Back to the Future is perfect. And I also, I'm like in the Pleasantville Hive. I think that movie, which this had clear kind of like nods to, especially this black and white. And then like the kind of the feeling and the emotion that came with coming into one's own, and like kind of Alyssa and you had that going. And there's this like this iconic moment where you're basically in black and white, but you have this like fluorescent blue, like because you guys have been making out.
Yeah.
And it's just like one of those stills that I've actually seen countless times, but I had no idea what it was actually from. And turns out it was from this episode.
Oh, wild.
Yeah, man.
When you saw that before, did you know it was me?
No.
Or no? Oh, wow.
No idea. No idea. It was like
not a clue.
Not a clue. I like
that's hilarious.
Not my finest moment. But then like I was like, wait a second. Yeah. So dude, diving right in, can you tell us, like, do you remember, well, first of all, do you remember shooting that episode?
I do, yeah. I remember it a lot. It was such a it was all the period stuff, but then it just was a really fun set. It was just playful. It was very playful, you know. Sorry, let me close this. And that was exactly what it was. It was the environment you got on your set was very conducive to trying things, you know, seeing what's like you as it was a great thing to come and do, because you felt free as an actor. You could kind of like you could just be free and let go and let it rip, and sometimes that's not the case. So I think the episode definitely lent itself to that kind of thing. And I remember all of us really embracing it. That's the kind of thing I remember. Kind of like just everybody, Robin Aiken Downs and I had like the best time off screen. We were just like, you know, shooting the shit and making each other laugh, and it was a really fun time.
Is Robin? Go ahead, HMC.
How can you even hear me breathing? Like, you see my face and you know I'm about to say something. That's so rude.
Sorry.
We can't share a brain anymore. I quit. No, that's really when the inmates basically have taken over the asylum, because we did have a lot of free range and we were running about like free range chickens. But it was a good moment in time. It was a good moment in time for the show, and we were feeling our oats, so to speak. So it was a good place, I think, just to be goofy, because a lot of it just was goofy.
Totally.
How was? Did you audition for
You
this,
know,
or was it an offer at that point? And
No, I auditioned for it. Yeah, I auditioned for it. I think there was one scene from the movie scene. I think with the interrogate not the interrogation, but the initial like confrontation between the demon and myself when we fall out. I think there
Hmm.
was that piece, and then I think I think the scene with Alyssa where we were with the one you mentioned, Drew. I think that was one of them in there, and then something else. Um, so I mean, for me, it was really like that the period that Billy's character in on screen was really the sort of like base, that I started with, that kind of period guy, the varsity Letterman, like that whole vibe of that. And then what was cool about filming it is, and I didn't really see this beforehand, but as we moved through it, more of the and we shot the stuff in the real world, more of that stuff like kind of fell off naturally.
mm,
So which I didn't, I guess I thought about beforehand, but the experience of it really lent itself to like that person kind of like, Billy kind of discovering himself as he kind of moves through the world, and he's kind of like, becomes one of the gang in a way, which is very much how I am. I remember feeling like, oh, I'm, Bill as Billy, like, oh, I'm one of the gang now, which was what he wanted so badly to feel, because he was. I mean, he says it to Phoebe, like, to be more like I get to be more like you,
Yeah.
which is this thing he's always been craving, to be free and kind of like, find himself and explore, and that naturally happened, which was
that's
which was great.
have your
that's
own
awesome.
thoughts. How hard is it saying you're swell?
You know what, man? It was one of those things where it's all the truth. If you have the truth, and swell is like, I love you, or you're
Your
amazing. I mean,
language.
it's just
Yeah.
say it the same way. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's their language for the time. So it's the same as if you're speaking your own. So you just give it everything. And I remember really like leaning into the truth of that. And but it was also, it's just super easy with Alyssa to play those moments for real, because she's so alive, and it was just a very like, the honesty was always there. So just if you just could kind of get out of the way and let that happen, it was yeah, it was I remember shooting that scene, and I just remember going, I just want to be here, like, I'm not gonna think about it. I'm just gonna like experience this, and it turned out really well. I was really happy with it, and it was really fun to shoot.
Yeah, it looked like you were having a blast. Like there were multiple times when we were watching it where I was like, "Look at him, he's smiling." Like you're having the best time, and it showed. And it
Yeah,
was almost like
yeah.
at first glance it was like, oh, you're breaking character, but no, actually it's Billy kind of enjoying being alive and getting to experience something new and different. And it just like it turned out to be such a beautiful choice. And I loved watching you work with that, and just again that joy that you took in every scene. It really came across.
Oh, that's sweet, man. Thank you very much for saying that. I remember actually that scene. Sorry, Holly, do you want to say
It
something?
does, and it makes the episode so much more believable, because
Probably,
if you
yeah.
weren't as an actor having fun doing that, the whole episode would have tanked in a big way.
Yeah, because that's the truth of like what he was living.
No,
I remember
definitely.
doing this scene where we were kind of coming down the hall with a knock on the door, and it was like I said like earlier, like feeling like one of the gang. Like we're going down the hall and someone's at the door, and it's scary, and it's not like I mean, obviously Billy comes from the horror world, but still he's like getting to live this, and we really don't know who it is. In the script, you would know who it is, so the excitement of that. And I remember smiling, and I think somebody said, "Hey, we need to do it again." The actor's smiling when they go to the door, and I was like, that's what I'm playing, like that's the
Oh
truth
gosh, I
of,
think I
and I
remember
remember
that
feeling
actually.
like this is going to go against, I think, what, but Michael
Yeah.
Schultz was great. He was like, no, he's like, no, that's what he's playing, and that works. Like, we're not going to shoot that again. Like,
Yeah.
he's on the money with that.
They were trying to blame us for like cracking you up, because we
Yeah,
are to
yeah,
blame
yeah,
most of
yeah,
the time.
yeah, yeah.
But no. That was not our fault that time.
Thank
It was
you.
a choice. Damn it. It was a choice.
And it was a perfect choice.
Yeah.
Like as Holly said, if you hadn't fully leaned into that, if you hadn't fully leaned into the dialogue and owning and like saying you're swell and kind of like we believe that as an audience, none of this would have worked, because this was
Yeah.
definitely like watching a bunch of episodes up to this. It's been pretty heavy and pretty serious. And then this one had a real, it was just campy and light in all the best ways.
Yeah, it was great. All the characters that were Bloody Mary and I forget the actor who had the axe, but everybody was great. We had such a ball shooting because we were all there, and it was a lot of extra horror. You know, they were in full makeup with blood everywhere and stuff, and we'd stop shooting, and everyone would be chilling out, just like laughing, and it was great. It was just well, I mean, I said it earlier. It was just a really just a great set.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, to kind of add on to what BK had asked about, like the process of that, like what is your process when it comes to whether it's something like approaching the 50s type of dialogue or just any character in general?
You know, I think for me, it's I guess it's trying to figure out like what the person wants, you know, what their you know what their need is, and kind of going from that place. I mean, with period stuff, like I've done a lot of plays and stuff, so I have experience with that kind of like how to approach or knowing the styles. I think it's kind of like I kind of understood a little bit that style. So just applying that kind of style for me, sometimes trying it on and trying it, and you know, maybe out that people use that outside in kind of thing where you put on the style first and then the truth kind of comes to you, or you can kind of do it the other way where it's all truth and then you start to add more of the period stuff. Both of those things can work. I think I do a combination of the two, but I definitely start like I try and start like in the period of it and try to find the truth as I go, but still it's that same, you know, line by line. You have to stay in the moment and figuring out where the beats are and where the transitions are and how the relationship is changing, and just trying to like, you know, being clear about the steps in which those things move. I think for me, scene to scene to scene, so I know kind of where I'm at in the storytelling. I think if I figure out what the overall story of, you know, what Billy wants, for example, and you know whether he gets it or not, and what new things come and what shifts happen and where they happen, as long as I'm clear and I have that sort of mapped out for myself in some kind of structure, then I feel like I'm free to sort of be in the moment. But if I don't have that structure, then I feel like I'm kind of all over the place in terms of, you know, following through the truth of the story that we're all telling, you know?
Yeah.
And what's it like for you guys? How do you guys approach, or did you approach your characters with this?
I do weird things where like I start with very little things like shoes. I start with shoes. I used to start with a watch. I think God is nutty as times to like find a perfume or not to. This was clearly when I was younger and had more free time. And so I do build from the outside in. And I feel like if I'm building like a character in my mind visually, then, you know, the shoes kind of inform the walk, and, you know, the jewelry or the scent kind of informs how you're moving, or how fast you move or don't move, or how much time you take to get ready as a woman in the morning or don't. And so, yeah, it is kind of like a weird sort of chemistry for me. It's a weird mad scientist experiment. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Such is life.
That's
BK,
the
what
thing I
about
thought
you?
was cool. Sorry, Brian. I just was going to say that's what I thought was so interesting about the three of you, Shannon and Alyssa. You guys all had a different kind of style of humor in a certain way. Your delivery was all kind of different and specific, which I thought was really unique and what made the show so exciting, especially in the beginning. You know, when it first came out. I remember loving Charmed so much. I was so excited to be on the show, and then when my episode came out, I was like, dude, I'm on Charmed. This is awesome. I actually love this show. I was pumped.
That's
Presuming
amazing.
it's not just
Anyway,
sides in an
I'll ask Brian a
audition, you
question
know, or
then.
even if it is.
Well, no,
That's
I was
I start
curious
with,
about
I
BK's
think, like you
approach
said,
to a
it's
character.
what does this person want? Where are they at in their life? Who is it? You know, and I start with, you know, the inside of who I am, and then it builds out from there. and then everything else can just be listening, reacting, because you are the truth if you're grounded on the inside. Um, so that's kind of where I start from. And then, sometimes, for me, I've done so many crazy things that people probably won't see, but where you get a script so quick and it's just kind of like payday, kind of, crazy, whatever. And, some of that work isn't done and you show up to set and you haven't done the work. And now you're just trying to listen and react and be in the moment. And there's something that's missing, so for all actors that are out there, no matter what the size of the part, you have to be grounded in yourself and know what you want and who you are before you can even do anything. Right. So, I see that as a big mistake. Sometimes people have their lines down or whatever, or they want to show you the character that they are, as opposed to just being what they are. So, mostly for me, I start, I just want to be.
Yeah, I know I had a terrible habit from auditioning because I did audition so often from the time that I was, 10 years old, that I had this habit, in the olden days, they would make you sit in a chair and, you would have your first couple of readings and then they would put you on tape where you would most likely be sitting in a chair, that I forgot to act with the rest of my body a lot of the time. And it was literally just from the shoulders up. And I had to remember when I was on set that I had not only space to work with, but a whole body to work with. And from never doing any stage, I was just that actor that was stuck in the audition chair that was ridiculous. I had to remind myself of not just using my body, but my posture. It goes right out the window in my brain when they say action, because all I'm thinking about is what's right here. So there's all these little tips and tricks and things that I still decades later have to remind myself of. Don't be a stick figure. Yeah, well, cut to 24 type television filmmaking and everything is up here anyway. So I was like, well, there went that theory.
Right. For me, I borrowed from, Larry's kind of 50 questions, which I think is now expanded to 75 questions. Larry Moss has this beautiful kind of 75 question thing you should ask your character before you ever step on stage or on set. And it's something like, what's your favorite color? And how did you lose your virginity? What was your relationship like with your parents? What was your birth like? Really building a character from scratch. And then once you come up with all these answers, it starts to inform how you move and shape ultimately your character. So that, it's kind of, I've always found that really helpful as a good way in as well.
Yeah, that goes way beyond my shoes.
I think
Claire
shoes
Danes
could
has
be
that
added
story.
to that list. I think
absolutely. What kind of shoes
from
does
the
she
ground
wear?
up?
Absolutely.
Duh.
Straight up. Claire Danes is famous. She would always find, I remember her talking about, it was when she was doing the rounds for Homeland back in the day, and she was talking about this character, how did she get into Carrie, and or any character for that matter, and she always finds their walk first, so there is no one right way, and there's no, it can be weird. Finding someone's walk is really important. This person walks differently than I do.
Yeah.
And because she comes from a dancing background, I guess, and that's how she approached her roles. So
it's
shoes.
True.
Well, I know with Piper, the Piper walk was a real big thing for a long time until I got tired of her walk, because that happened in year 6. I was like, she needs to calm the fuck down. But yeah, it was the shoes. It was the clickety clack on the sidewalk in the rain. It's the first shot of the entire series. So it was well, how do you walk in that situation? And that outfit, by the way, where the skirt was this tight pencil skirt. And I was like, you walk like this.
The Piper walk. I didn't even know this was a thing.
I didn't
Oh, it
it's
is.
great.
Oh, it's a thing.
But now you're going to find the moments when I don't do it, and that's what I'm afraid of.
Oh,
I'm going to be graded on this assignment.
100%.
Yeah, I know.
100%. Well, Chris, you actually also answered my I had a follow-up question of like, were you aware of Charmed by the time, like when you got the audition and the part?
Yeah, I
Had you
was.
worked
I totally
for
was. Yeah,
Spelling
Yeah,
Entertainment
that's
before that on any of
it was cool.
his other shows?
I think I did. I can't remember if I did Charmed first and then 90210. I did 90210. I may have done 90210 first.
I think you did it before.
Did I?
For some reason, I think that I remember that.
What
Did
else
you work
I
with
do?
Shannon before?
No, I never had.
You didn't?
No.
Oh, for some reason, I thought you guys knew each other from before.
She was cool.
Wow.
She was great. I remember actually to go to talk about like, walks and all that kind of stuff. I remember when we shot that little fight scene between Robin and I forget who the fight coordinator was on the show, but
Noon. It was Noon or Ernie.
Okay, so we were sort of like mapping that out, and he goes, "Are you right-handed or left-handed?" I said, "Right-handed." And he goes, "Okay, you're going to take Robin, and you're going to throw a punch like this." And I went, "Hold on." I go, I said this in all serious. I go, "Billy's left-handed," something like that. Like I think this guy's left-handed. So I want, and he looked at me like I was from Mars, man. He was just like, "Dude, what are you even talking about, dude? We're shooting a TV show, like." And I was like, no, I think Billy's left-handed. Can I throw a left-handed punch? And he was like, okay,
Yes.
dude, okay.
Yes, you can. Dang it.
But dude, I remember like setting that punch up and coming like and trying to throw like a but it was part of the period, like the left-handed like haymaker that you set up for and try and throw. And I wanted to deliver that so bad. And he was cool, man. He was like, no, I get it. I get what you're trying to do. Like, but I remember when I said it, it was that like, I'm going to say this about my character and this guy's going to be like, actors, here we go, like, like, what is this guy even talking about? It was funny.
I'm sorry, but Billy's left-handed.
Billy is totally left-handed.
Billy is 100%
I agree.
He's left-handed, man.
100%. Sweet Billy.
Artistic Billy.
Oh, man.
I know, man. It's that thing that's like where it can come off like that in a certain way. I remember being conscious of not wanting it to, truthfully saying like, I think this, this is the character I'm kind of building and this is kind of like what I'd like to do with it. And, I remember being conscious of wanting to have truthful conversations about like, what I was trying to do with Billy. And, everybody was super welcoming and open to it. It was, that's why I was saying it was such a blast, because it was one of those times where, I feel like I got to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah, it really came off. A lot of
That's
actors
really cool.
have come in, and not just our show, but a lot of shows, and not necessarily put in that amount of work. They're not thinking about left-handed, right-handed. They're not thinking about the truth of swell. They're just, give me the paycheck. I'm in, I'm out. I did 4 days, whatever. I was back. I'll see you later. And that's, I think that's again why this episode really popped.
It was great. I know all you guys I remember too, my first days of shooting, really sort of like, in the scenes with you guys. I remember, I think I only did one scene with you, Brian, right? It was that big sort of like scene in the beginning where we're talking about, you guys were kind of putting together like what you needed to do and where to find the demon and the steps you were all going to take. And I remember watching you in that scene, because I was Billy and I felt so big because the period and the size of the movie screen and the world he lived in. And I remember you were so focused, and the energy of your character was so different from everybody else's because of the background of your character. And I remember watching you and, playing in the scene, just going, this fucking guy's amazing. Like, he's just so subtle and truthful and doesn't move a lot, but he's communicating so much in the energy of your character. It was really cool. It was, and the same with you, Holly. I remember like I alluded to earlier, like your guys, you all have a very specific sense of humor, and the way that you delivered your lines was so exciting. You guys all had different little pieces, and it made this great group. And I remember when we were shooting, really like taking it in and going, fuck, she's great, he's great. It was cool. It was very cool to be a part of.
This was one of these early on episodes where I was extremely jealous that I wasn't part of the show yet. Like, I'm watching it and knowing that my character does come, pretty far down the line, but there's certain episodes like, God, I wish I was on that set that day. and like getting to play with you guys. Like it came across as the most fun job, and like brilliant actors and brilliant moments, and everyone kind of eating and feeling full. And I think that's why the show still continues to have success today, and why it's on every single day still, and why we're able to actually do this. It's so good. It's so good, and it holds up.
Yeah,
Chick
it
Flick
really
is
does.
amazing.
Next week.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, I might watch it again. You never know. So, Chris, before we let you go, because I know your son's probably knocking at your feet.
He came in here.
What are
Did
you
you guys
up
hear
to?
him?
Yeah, it's cute.
Yeah.
He's
That's
good.
okay.
Usually
You
he
know,
talks.
Yeah, bring him on.
I usually have a dog or maybe
A
a goat
goat.
or a few kids pass by, a few planes. You know, we're very informal here.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
very
great.
informal. So, dude, what have you been up to? What's going on?
Life, you know what I mean? I mean, I've been doing a lot of voice work,
Mhm.
a lot of some video games and a lot of stuff like that. A lot of
Cool.
still acting, still you know, writing, working on a children's story, and my wife has a production company, and so you know, working a lot on sort of like getting projects off the ground, stuff like that. You know,
That's awesome. Are you teaching?
not anymore. No. Yeah, I think when the
Okay.
pandemic
How did
happened,
you
Damn
two
Connex.
meet?
we met in Nancy Banks's class, an acting class. And
Nancy
when was
Banks
that?
is,
Like 2011?
I'd say earlier, 2010,
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that. There was Nancy Banks is from the Larry Moss School, like the teaching tree, and she just had there was an era, you know, maybe like 5 years where I felt like everyone in that class, like the level of work in that class was A+. You'd have to bring it every
Yeah.
single week, and it wasn't like a competition at all, but it was like everyone came bringing their A game, and so no one could slack off. And she really demanded excellence. And Chris was in that class, and like a bunch of my close friends, like Mike Vogel, who I was literally texting with an hour ago, was in that class, and Wes Chatham, and you know, just a great group of really beautiful work and beautiful actors. And it's awesome that we've all kind of been able to stay in touch for, you know, the past 10, 15 years. Good
Drew,
God.
I have a question. Did you
Yeah.
ask a lot of questions in that class?
No,
Really?
really. Chris will attest to that.
Are you sure?
Yeah, you couldn't. It wasn't like that kind of environment. Holly
It
gets
was.
on me because I ask a lot of questions because I'm curious.
Are
But
you?
like, yeah, but you can't do that in that acting class. It wasn't like an open forum for all of us
Right.
to just like sit and
That
ask
explains
questions.
why you had so many questions later.
It was a scene study class. Like she's like, we're getting to work, and like first up, and that was it.
Yeah.
But yeah. But Chris was
Awesome.
an all-star in that class.
Uh-oh.
All right, sorry guys. So we had a quick little blip, but we're back just to say goodbye. But yeah, BK had just said like, we could talk to Chris for hours. Your resume is massive, but anyway, we wanted to tell you how much we love Billy and your performance, man. You were awesome, and again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Honestly, it was like I said, it was a pleasure to watch and be part of the show, and I'm really I'm honored that you guys asked me to do this. It was I'm so glad that the episode is continuing to live on, man. It was really fun.
Oh yeah. No,
I'm glad people love it.
We couldn't have done it without you. Like people would have been angry at us if we had not had you. So I properly chastised Drew, dropping his balls, dropping all his pickleballs.
It's my fault. Well, that means what this really means is I'm gonna have to cheat ahead and start watching episodes.
No, not for the live watch parties. But you know what? You do know so many people. Maybe you do. Listen, so you look at the IMDb of names, but you don't watch the episode.
Fine.
How's that?
Fine.
New rule.
New rule.
New rule.
New rule.
Never ready.
When do you start coming on?
Oh, dude, we're only on season 2. I'm not till 6.
Oh,
We got a lot of time.
I got a long runway. Long runway.
You're gonna get more and more nervous as you get closer.
I'm already
I
sweating
think you
it.
should come back and critique his performance
I
on his
know,
first
right?
episode. Let's
Wait,
do it.
can we all come back and critique your performance?
Oh
Yes.
shit.
That's the next live watch party. Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
love
yeah.
to
Chris,
talk about his
you
process.
interview
Wait,
him?
guys,
Will
wait,
you
hold on, hold
interview
on.
Drew when he
This was
comes
like
on?
8 years before Banks, like my charm stint.
Right.
Like
No
long,
excuses.
long before I ever had any real craft, trade craft, if
No
you will.
excuses.
Oh man,
Mm-mm. We all have an origin story, my friend.
it's not good. I'm dreading it for real.
Wait, is that a general rule? You don't watch any of your stuff?
I had a dear friend of mine, kind of like right when I was on Charmed, and he's one of my favorite actors on the planet. I will bleep it out, so I'm not name dropping for the people, just for you four. We were at lunch one day and we were talking about watching performances, and he was like, "Fuck no." He also doesn't believe in he doesn't believe in acting coaches. He's like, it's cheating. Obviously, he's such a titan, and I was like in such awe of him for the longest time in regards to his craft, and still am. Obviously, he's a genius, and he was like, "Don't watch your shit, because you're not in control of the edit, and it will get in your head, and you'll start getting upset about things and like moments that you thought were real, and then you'll start second guessing it, and
Yeah, it's true.
it's devastating. He's super sensitive, and I'm super sensitive, and he goes like, it will eat away at you. So because
Torture.
you're not in control, and you think you hit this moment and you felt authentic, and all of a sudden they're playing something else, or they cut away, or they cut the scene." He goes,
Yeah.
"You can't, like, it's too detrimental to the actor because you don't have a say in that side of things." And so
Yeah.
I kind of like early on, I adopted that because I'm hard on myself anyway. And like when I watched earlier stuff, I was like fine tooth combing it and like obsessive in an unhealthy way. So I kind of like took a step back and go, you know what? Trust it. Check in maybe once a year. If like I was on a show like Army Wise is when I was working with Nancy, it's like watch 1 or 2 episodes max, maybe, just to make sure that you haven't developed any bad habits or
Yeah.
ticks. But for the most part, leave it be. Trust the process, and like you continuing to work like is testament to like you're doing something
But
right.
what about auditions and self tapes and turning in voice auditions and stuff? How do you
Yeah,
choose your best tape?
no, on the flip side, that's now changed because the self-taping has become the norm. And like, and I made that transition to like directing 4 or 5 years ago. So now I'm very much hands-on. I just haven't had a job, like a series regular job in that long. So I think I would probably approach it much differently now than I did then, just because I'm approaching it from a different eye, if that makes sense.
Or you just send the takes to me and I pick one.
You've done that before.
I know.
Like I can't pick between these two. Which one? But yeah, so that's kind of why I haven't watched. But like I've seen some charm stuff, and like I really thought there was like someone doing a voiceover on my voice, and it's just like, oh no, you just haven't hit puberty and you sound like a chipmunk. And
That's the crazy thing when you start watching stuff from that long ago. I did the same thing when I just rewatched Chick Flick. I was like, holy shit, my voice was. I didn't realize my voice was that high because I'm used to it now and it's so much lower.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the
Yeah.
youth.
Oh man,
The youth.
It's interesting. He doesn't watch any of your stuff because whenever I watch his work, I'm always like, that's what everybody. That's what when acting teachers and we all talk about like making something your own. Like he's inside all the rhythms and in the writing, but he's also his own. He makes his own choices, and he's very much himself. He brings a lot of himself to each role
yeah,
in a way where they blend together, and that's where I think so sets him, so far apart from many people because he's so unique as a person and as an actor, and all of that is in every role that he plays
yeah.
in the most amazing way, and it's interesting to learn that he doesn't watch any of his stuff because I guess maybe that's part of his how he's able to sort of like perform so well.
Completely.
I mean, if he watches stuff, I'm sure he would still be as fucking brilliant
Yeah.
as he is always anyway. But
No,
it's
he
interesting.
doesn't want to have any no self-conscious moments, right? And I think
Right.
like we as artists and actors in general, like the moment we kind of start analyzing, we become self-conscious. Like, why does my hair look like that? Or why does my voice or why did I do that?
Yeah.
But he's so free because he's not attached to like how it's edited. That's not on him.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Don't get hit by the plane.
Incoming.
For real.
Incoming.
I was reading Steve McQueen's biography, and he apparently bought a film camera with a bunch of different lenses and would sit at home filming
Oof.
himself
Oh wow.
from every single angle and figure out his angles, where his face should be, looking down, looking left, looking right, walking into a room, shoulders up, how his walk is. And he was that into knowing exactly how his body looked with a 50 from 10 feet or a 35 across the room. So he knew what his physicality was. And I don't know if that freed him up or not, but you got to think he's just thinking about some of that.
Yeah, that's the exact opposite of me.
Lens and walk into it, right?
The exact opposite.
We've all been on set, and someone's walked in like, "Hey, what kind of lens? What lens are we using?" And someone's like, "An 85." You're like, "Oh, okay."
Cool.
Makeup, like,
Cool.
glam.
No, people still ask me, "What's your best side?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't want to know. Let's just shoot this."
Exactly. That's what I liked about a show like Friday Night Lights, right? It was 3 cameras going simultaneously at all times, and and we're just going to do the scene 5 times. And don't worry, when you won't know when your coverage is. Treat every scene it's like it's your coverage, and the camera is just moving and floating and catching moments. And I think what a luxury. I think that would be such an awesome way to approach shooting something. Where you just never know. You're just like, hey, assume that it's always on.
In that, right? And Chris, you've done a lot of different TV shows and guest spots in so many roles. Do you find there's a consistency from show like a CSI New York to a Charmed? Like our set was fun and you felt free. I mean, does that sort of thing change? Is it different on every set?
I think it's different on every set. I mean, look, it depends who's in the shows. It depends on what the dynamic is between the people in the shows. It depends on what kind of show it is. If it's a comedy, if it's a drama, if the show's doing well, if it isn't doing well, like all those things kind of factor into, what the experience can be like. I mean, I think every guest actor probably tries to go in and, tries to stay within themselves and try to keep that stuff as far away from their own process as possible. And I think sometimes we're successful in that and sometimes not. But I've been in all kinds of situations. I mean, the thing you mentioned about cameras going from all different angles and stuff, I did an improv comedy called 10 Items or Less. And a lot of it was that way, where it'd be three cameras at least going at once. So master, close-ups, all that kind of stuff was all being shot at the same time. So you knew if you did something, it was captured on from all these different angles. And so there was no you never felt like you had to hit something again or repeat anything. It was just free to sort of let it rip every time. And most of it was going to get captured in a bunch of different ways, so it could be used and cut. And Dexter was kind of like that. The DP Romeo on Dexter was fucking amazing. And so there would be 4 cameras all rolling at once, all from almost the same kind of angle, but closer and farther. And so it was, so whatever side you were on, it was just boom, 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 boom from all these different places. And just all right, very little direction, just go again. It's it's great. Just keep going. And it's it was, that was an interesting process along the lines of what you're talking about, where a lot of stuff and sizes are all being shot at once. So I think the thing about trying to match things and making sure you did what you did before and all that, kind of you don't have to think about that as much, and you're kind of freer to just kind of try new shit and see what happens. And but yeah, I do find it's different on most, because each thing is its own kind of animal and its own has its own vibe. And yeah, I mean, that's been my experience. What about you guys?
Everywhere you go to, it seems to be different. I think, like you said, it's who's starring, how's the show doing, what did they have for breakfast? Did they just break up with their girlfriend? Everybody brings something. You have 100 people bringing their own life to the set. How can you separate that by the time you get to action? So it's always a different path to get there. And I found, sometimes coming in as a guest that, I think, like you said, you're coming in, you have your own process, but you don't want to engage that with the stars of it. like just show up and do your stuff and kind of stay out of the way. And,
Yeah.
but you also kind of want to meld with them because you're supposed to be kind of intimate. So it's a fine line of like, oh, hey, can we hang out? To, all right, I'll give you your space, and I know where I'm. You know your spot, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is tough. Like, I did a guest spot on Grey's Anatomy, which was like in its 40th season. And I was just like, it is kind of like you tiptoe in, lightly and gently. And they're like a family in a well oiled machine. And you just don't want to mess up too many times.
Yeah.
So there's that.
I think it comes down to, the leads of the show that tend to set the tone of the set. If they're in a good mood and they're good people, you're going to have a lot of fun. And, that's kind of tend to be my experience. If everything's light there and, I've been on a couple where everything was a bit terse, if you will. And, the DP's not having fun. The camera guy's not this, the prop guy, every's just kind of whispering under their breath. And, now you got to go to set and you got to deal with this person. And
let's go.
It's
amazing.
Anytime you work with me, Cal, it's always different, and that's where I try to always just be light and fun.
Yeah.
It's a place where at the end of the day we're just playing, right?
Does anyone know anything? Really?
Not really.
No, we don't.
No.
We're just kind of stumbling around, figuring it out.
Hashtag
But
never
I think
ready.
when you're younger, you're worried about not knowing things. At least I was. And now I'm like, as you get older, you realize there's so much you don't know, and you kind of let it go.
Yeah.
And that I was going to say earlier when you were talking about when you were younger and you had more time, you could make more character choices. But when you become a parent, you're like, fuck it, man. I just got to go. Like, I got to say I just got to fucking get it done. Like, here's the scene. This is what it's about. Like, go. Don't think.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great aspect to that when your life gets busy with kids and stuff, where you drop a lot of that shit in a way where you can, you have to do that work, but there's also a great sort of freedom that comes with just like having to knock it out.
Unfortunately, I mean, that was my experience. The last show that I think I auditioned for was Pretty Little Liars. And it wasn't even really an audition. It was a chemistry read with Chad Lowe. So I just had to like manufacture chemistry, right on the spot. I've never met him before. Okay. Yeah, you have the job. If you two have chemistry, great. Well, my youngest son was 11 months old. I was still trying to breastfeed. And as soon as I like walk in the door, I see my phone go off in my bag, and it's the nanny, of course. So I just look at him. I look at my bag. I know I can't take the phone call. And I go, okay, let's go. Let's do this. And he just looks at me like, okay. And it just worked because they were like, they were the parents of teenagers, and it just happened to work that we happened to have that kind of parental chemistry that day.
That's wild.
Do you attack a game or a guest spot or a film or a play differently, or is it always
I think
kind of the same process to get there?
I mean, I guess it's a similar process because it's always me. So I kind of do, in terms of what Drew was saying about the 50 questions, like I kind of start from that same place. But for me, it's really I start with trying to understand like what the script is, where the technically what I need to do in the script. Like, again, like, where the beats are, what my character wants, where the transitions are. Do I get it or not? How do I move forward? Do I move forward? What's the thing that's driving, trying to find all those things first is always how I start. I feel like, and it's the same's true. And I mean, what's cool about video games, especially if you're doing motion capture, is you're using your body in the same way that you do when you're on screen in wide shots, or if you're on stage, because it's a big, huge stage. And so you basically have, things that are mapping out your skeleton, and whatever you want to do with how your body moves is how the life of your character is. So there's a lot of freedom, but a lot of work has to be done to sort of make sure that that's fully realized. You know what I mean? But for me, it all starts in that same kind of place, like with the text and figuring out what the text is asking of me and what's the story, and just kind of going through over and over and over it. And then the story and the stuff starts to kind of like develop a rhythm, or start to like, give clues to me that I then kind of follow. That's kind of how I do it, where I just keep going over it and over and over it. And then what starts to become something I just kind of try to roll with
The
that.
video games, are you acting with another actor, or are you just voiceovering your entire performance?
Well, some of it's voiceover, some of the games voiceover, some is motion cat. Like, do you guys play Call of Duty?
Kids do.
So,
Oh.
so the latest Black Ops game
Sure.
called Cold War, I played Alex Mason in that, and that was well. This happened. We shot this in the beginning of the pandemic, so I did half of or actually a little less than half of the motion capture for my character. And so there's that. So those scenes, depending on what scenes you're in, some are group scenes, some are 2-person scene, 3-person scenes, but everybody's in full kind of get up with a face camera and the dots and everything, and you're acting out scenes like in a almost kind of like if you had a black box theater with nothing in it, like a box represents you have like stuff that mimes, you have to mime smoking, and you have like things that represent guns and stuff like that, little props, but they're not actual, so that the camera can pick up everything and then they can build the all the animation on top of it. So you play those scenes as real scenes that you have to kind of prepare, like as if you're walking on stage, in a theater show. And then some of it's voiceover, where it's just you have your lines and stuff, and you kind of have an idea of what your character looks like, or not, and you just kind of like play the truth of it through all through the microphone.
Dude, you do have a great voice, by the way.
Thank you.
Could listen to it all
It's
day.
funny. That's the actually, I won't tell that story. I won't say that. I won't talk about that.
Never mind.
Yeah,
That's
never
for
mind.
another time.
Well, unfortunately, I have to run, and I know HMC has to run. Chris, thank you, dude, so much for taking time out of your day to be here with us and kind of share your experience and fill us all in about what's been going on. You're such an integral part of this show, and again, Chick Flick is in the upper echelons as all-time charmed episodes. So thank you for being here and being a part of it.
Absolutely. Thanks for reaching out. I'm so happy to be a part of it. I always, when I see the articles come out about Phoebe's top loves, I think Billy made it at 6 or something. I saw it. I was like, fuck yeah, man. I get pumped. I haven't been on the show, so we haven't talked about it, but in my way, when I see that, I'm like, that's right.
Top 6, baby. Let's go.
Top 6.
Let's go.
Pesky kid.
Top 6 and climbing.
Hey, man, you might be
Totally.
We'll revisit that for sure by the
Yeah,
end
we
of the
will.
season on the series. Like Phoebe's top loves, top 10.
It's so cool to be part of something like that, like this. It's really cool.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks.
Anyway,
again.
it's really nice to see you guys again, and I'm glad you're all doing so well, and I'm so grateful, obviously, for the invite to be a part of it.
Cheers, brother.
We're so looking forward to having you back for Drew's first episode.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm gonna start my questions now.
I'm so sorry. Stop.